Hello viewers, welcome back. So this is the part 2 of our series of sessions on bill-wise detail module in Tally. In the last session, we saw the need for a receivable and payable management, and we also saw how to enable the bill-wise detail in Tally. So in this session, we will see how are we going to create our masters for our customers and suppliers and make sure that the bill-wise detail is enabled, and how do we start capturing the transactions with the additional information of capturing the bill-wise information for tracking purpose. So in this session, broadly, we will see there are different types of method of adjustment which forms the basic fundamental of understanding the module of bill-wise detail in Tally. Okay, we will start with Tally Prime. Now, the experience of capturing your data with additional tracking of your bill-wise management in Tally Prime and also in Tally ERP is going to be the same thing. Okay, so the way I'm going to demonstrate and show you how you're going to capture these information in Tally Prime will be the same in Tally ERP also. Okay, so there is no major change as far as the capturing of data. Okay, so if you see, uh, let's now. Okay, so we have made sure that the bill-wise detail is enabled in our F11 feature. Okay, escape. And now let us create a new customer ledger. Okay, so I'm going to now come to create. So we are in the gateway of Tally. So you have master creation. So the cursor is already highlighted on create. So click on create and then you will select ledger. So we have seen this, how to create the ledger master. So let's say we'll create a new customer. So I'm calling it as new customer. And under is the parent, which is very important. We have discussed in our earlier sessions. So under is going to be under sundry debtors. So you don't even have to type sundry debtors. So either you type the first word or the middle word or the last word. So whichever way, Tally is going to filter from the list of group. So let me just say DB. So you will notice here that sundry debtors is already selected. Enter. And if you see here, maintain bill by bill is made as yes. By default, it is made as yes. Okay. So now nothing else need to be done. So I'm going to press Control A. Control A is to save the master as it is. So we have created the master, and now let's just come to the voucher entry and pass a new sales invoice for this new customer. Okay. So come to vouchers, enter, and so by default Tally brings you the payment voucher. So you know now how to get your sales voucher. So on the right hand side button bar, you have the sales voucher button, which is F8. So you just press F8, and we had also discussed about this sales invoice capturing in the invoice mode, and we are capturing the item invoice mode because we are going to use the item in this particular transaction. Okay, so your sales invoice number is there. So already I have some 15 invoices made. So my next sales invoice voucher number is 16. So let's say the date is going to be 1st of December. Okay, let me take 1st of December 12. Okay, so 1st December 2020. Now, very important thing that you have to remember. So how Tally tracks the reference number. See, when I say bill wise detail, so you are now going to track the outstanding based on a particular reference number. So what is this reference number? Now, for example, if you are making a sales invoice, your sales voucher number will be the primary reference number for you to follow up on that particular invoice, and also for your customer. Ideally, he will take your sales invoice number as his bill wise tracking. See, for him, it is going to be payable. So he's going to use your thing. So the common reference number that either party would be selecting, especially in case of your sale, in your books of account, your sales voucher number should be the ideal reference that you are going to track for your bill wise detail. And as a customer, when you are accounting this invoice in your books of account, for you it becomes a purchase invoice. So you will now, you will have to capture my sales invoice number as, obviously you will capture that as your purchase invoice number, and for you that should be the primary tracking reference number for your payable of that particular invoice. And the same logic Tally also uses, so very important for us to understand. So by default, if you see, Tally, whenever you make a sales invoice, Tally will use your sales voucher number as a primary reference number, and it will auto populate your sales invoice number as your reference number. Now, when you make your purchase, so for example, let us say I'm going to make a purchase entry. So now when I come to my purchase entry, you will notice that you will also have your purchase voucher number, and just below your purchase voucher number, you have supplier invoice number and the invoice date of that particular invoice from your supplier. Okay. Now, if I'm going to make my sales invoice, which is going to be invoice number 16, and if you're accounting this as a purchase, ideally you will enter 16 as the supplier invoice number. And by default, whatever date that you select in your voucher while accounting your purchase, by default, Tally is going to take that date as the date of the invoice. Now, supposing for some reason, let us say that the bill was made on 1st of December, okay, and then you are accounting on 2nd of December. So your voucher date is going to be 2nd of December, and when you enter your supplier invoice number, by default it will take 2nd December as the invoice number. You can come here and you will see that cursor is blinking in the date field, so you can go and change it to 1st of December. Now this has got a very important relevance. When we come to GST, we will get into the detail of it. So now, whenever you make a purchase invoice, Tally by default will take the reference, that whatever you are going to type here in the supplier invoice number is what by default will Tally take as a reference number in case of accounting of purchase invoice. So this is the default one. But as a user, you have the choice of selecting the reference number. But again, ideally, make sure that any reference that you're going to track for your sales, make sure that it is your sales voucher number. And when you're making a purchase, make sure that you are going to capture the supplier invoice number, and by default Tally is going to auto populate the supplier invoice number as the reference, and maintain or keep that same reference. So this way, what happens when you are following up with your customer, and when you say that this particular, so now I'm going to say that my invoice number 16 is already due, so now I'm going to follow up with you. So now it becomes very easy for us to communicate, me as a seller and you as a buyer. I can tell you, hey, look, my supplier invoice number, sorry, my sales invoice number 16 is still pending. So now, since your vendor also would have, normally he should track your sales voucher as his supplier invoice number. So he will also now know when I say bill number 16, you can also refer the same reference number and see whether it is fallen due. So, and by default, Tally is going to take these references in your bill allocation. So we will see how Tally is going to take and what is this bill allocation screen I'm talking about. Okay, so let me come to my sale. So I'm going to press F8 sale. So it's my 16, And the reference number, ideally in your sales, probably you can have your PO number or any other information that you want. You can capture there in the reference number, or you can leave it blank also. Okay, it doesn't matter. Now I'm going to select my customer, new customer. So I'm going to say new customer, enter, and it is asking me what is the sales ledger. So that this information is going to add up to my financial books of account. So I'm going to select sales ledger. Okay, and now it's asking me what is the item that I'm going to supply. So I'm going to select my item. So let me select my item. Let us say I'm going to sell Dell laptop i3 one number. Okay, so it is asking me the quantity. So I will say one number. Okay, so this again, depending on my previous selling price that I have selected in my previous invoice for any of my customer, by Tally by default will auto populate this. If there is a change in the rate, you can go and change the rate. I'm going to just keep it as it is. Okay, 40,000. Enter. Okay, I'm not bringing any GST aspect of it. Okay, so we will just select. Now is where you will see that the a new screen is going to a sub screen is going to open up. Okay, so when I enter here, you are going to get this new sub screen. How are you getting this new sub screen? Is because that we have enabled our bill wise detail feature in Tally. So we have to understand this. So now I am making a new sale. So Tally is asking me, since I have enabled bill wise detail for this party, which is my new customer. So Tally is asking me that give me the bill wise detail for the new customer up to 40,000 rupees. That means I made a sales invoice of 40,000 rupees. Now it is asking me, give me the bill wise detail so that I can start tracking for you. That is what Tally is telling. Now, in the type of reference, if you see, there are four method of adjustment. Now, this is very important for us to understand this four method of adjustment. So let me just quickly explain to you these four method. So first, I will explain to you in this session only about the new reference. What is this new reference? And briefly, I will explain about the other method of adjustment. When would you use this other method of adjustment? We will see that in Tally when we come to the respective transactions where we need to select the other types of references. Okay. So now let me just quickly explain to you. Now let us take a customer. So I'm making an invoice to a customer. So let me take, let's say, so I have this new customer. Okay. This is my ledger. Okay. So now we are making a new bill on 112. So I said my sales invoice number. So if you see in our book, my sales invoice number to this particular customer is 16. Okay. And my amount is 40,000. Right. So my invoice number becomes my primary reference. Okay. Now we have four types of adjustment in Tally. Okay. So basically, one is it says advanced. So this gets listed as per in the alphabetical order. Then against reference, then you have new reference, and then you have on account. Okay. Now, whenever you make a new invoice, okay, this is the fresh invoice you are making to a customer. Since I am going to now track the outstanding amount of this particular invoice, so I am going to track by the reference number of 16, right? So every new invoice is going to be my new reference. Okay. So every time, okay, every time, so there are two things. Every time you make a new sale to the same customer or to any customer, right? So your sales, you will select in the bill wise adjustment, you will say this is new reference because that's a new reference you are creating for that outstanding amount. Let's say after a couple of days, you are going to make another invoice to the same new customer where, let us say, on 10th of December, you are making another invoice. assuming that there is no other invoice that you have made, this invoice number is going to be 17, right? So now when Tally is asking you what is the reference that you are going to do, and you will notice that by default, Tally, there's intelligence built in Tally where, automatically Tally puts the cursor in the new reference. Okay. So every new bill is going to be my new reference. So that is what I'm going to select as new reference in all my new sales invoice. And similarly, when I'm going to make a purchase, okay, so I had mentioned that in purchase, it is always better you capture the purchase invoice number of your supplier. So that reference number is going to be your new reference. So all new purchases of the same party or different party, you are going to always select new reference. Okay. So that's about your new reference. Okay. Then when will you select against reference? Okay. So the against reference, obviously we know that now let us say you have given 30 days credit to this customer. So that means this bill is going to fall due on um, 1st January. Okay. Now the second bill you're going to make, let us assume that this is 60,000 rupees. Okay. And again, you have given 30 days credit. So this is going to fall due on 10 1. Okay. This is going to fall due on 10/1. Now, let us assume that the customer is now making the payment for this particular invoice. So when you are receiving money, again this bill wise detail is going to come. So this bill wise detail is going to open, and now what you're going to do, you're going to say, I am receiving this money against my reference which I have created for which the amount is due. Okay. So every time you receive money from your customer, or you make a payment to your vendor against a particular outstanding invoice, so you will select against reference. Okay. So the moment you select against reference, so against reference is selected. When do you select against reference? So generally against reference is selected for all your receipt of amount. Okay. So you will select against outstanding reference. The moment you say against reference, whatever are the bills that are outstanding, Tally is going to give you the list of all the invoices that are outstanding, okay, which you have raised, which are outstanding, which is due or which is not due. It is going to give you the list. So now it is very important you select the proper reference against which you are going to receive your invoice. Supposing you are receiving against invoice number 16, which is 40,000 rupees. Okay. So you will select against reference. Now, by selecting against reference, what happens? This outstanding report that Tally is going to give you saying that these are the bills which are pending or which is outstanding. The moment you knock it off, okay, against you knock it off against this reference number 16, this outstanding invoice will now get removed from your outstanding statement. So that is what is your against reference. And then advance. Briefly, I will tell you. So, whenever you receive an advance from your customer for future supply, then it is not going to be a new reference because you're not making a new invoice to him, right? So, in that case, you will select advance. Similarly, when you are paying advance to your vendor for future purchase, then you will select advance. So how to manage advance, how do you knock off, we will go when we get into the the transaction of advance, where I'm going to show you each of the reference. I'm going to show you a transaction so that it becomes much clearer for all of you. And then what is on account? On account is basically where you are not clear about the amount that you have received from your customer. Let us assume that there is this bill pending. So you have this bill of 40,000 rupees pending, and you have another bill of 60,000 rupees pending. And let's say today is already 15th of January. So which means literally you will see when you go to Tally's outstanding report, it is going to tell you by how many days. Okay, so this invoice is overdue because both the money you have not received. Okay. Now let us say the customer pays you 50,000 rupees. Okay, he pays you 50,000 rupees. Now, and the customer has not informed you against which invoice he is making payment, right? So in that case, you're not clear about f- against which invoice you are going to knock off this amount. Okay, and why it is important, like I said earlier, that both the buyer and seller should have a common reference, so that when we are communicating about that particular invoice outstanding, by when we are referring to this reference number, both of us are clear. So generally I knock off that reference in my books of account. Ideally, your customer also should and will knock off against the same reference, so that both of us know that particular invoice is no more outstanding. Okay. So in cases where you have multiple invoices which are pending, and if the customer is paying you a lump sum which is not exactly referred to any of your outstanding invoice, in that situation, what you will do, instead of you going and adjusting in a different way and the customer adjusting in another way, it will now lead to again the conflict of the reference number at later point in time when you are following up on the outstanding invoice. So it is better that you don't knock off against any invoice. Now, if I don't knock off against any invoice, how do I complete this transaction? So Tally says you put it as on account. Take it under on account, which means you are saying it is towards a suspense invoice number. You are not knocking off against any particular invoice, but you have received money, so you have to account for it. So you account it, saying that 50,000 rupees you have received, but not against any invoice. I am putting it on account I am receiving. At later point in time, when I get a clarification of against which invoice I need to knock off, then you can go back to that particular invoice and then select against reference and knock off against reference. So till such time, the reference will remain as on account. It will reduce the outstanding amount that you are going to receive from your customer. In this case, 1 lakh is outstanding, he's already paid you 50,000 rupees. What is the balance amount he's going to pay? He's going to pay 50,000 rupees is what is outstanding. So that is what is going to show in your ledger balance. Now, when you come to your outstanding, even in outstanding, it is going to tell you that 40,000 bill number 16 is outstanding, bill number 17, 60,000 is outstanding, 1 lakh is outstanding, but on account you have received 50,000. So the net outstanding uh, is going to be 50,000 rupees only, but it is not knocked off against any reference. So that is how you will see. We will see the report when we are going to pass this transaction. Okay. So these are the four uh, different adjustment that you have to understand and then use these references properly. Only then you will have a proper outstanding management in Tally for you to track it. Okay. So let's just complete this transaction. So now by default Tally says new reference and I'm going to select new reference. And if you notice here, because this is my sales voucher, Tally is automatically taken my sales invoice number as the reference number. Now Tally, you will see the cursor is blinking in the name of the reference number. Either you accept this or you want to change it for whatever reason, you can do that. But please, in all your purchase and sale, remember what I told you and just accept what by default Tally is going to give you. That's easier for follow up from either of the parties. Now this is where it is going to ask you, okay, if for this particular invoice, how many days of credit are you giving? Now again, you don't have to now calculate it. For example, let us say I'm going to give 30 days credit. So you really don't have to open your calendar and count 30 days and see when it is going to be due, right? So very simple. You're giving 30 days credit. Just say I'm giving 30 days credit. Tally will automatically calculate 30 days from the date of your invoice, and it is also going to tell you when it is going to be due. So just press 30, and you will see here that it says that on 31st of December, because December has got 31 days since you have said 30 days credit. So it says this bill is going to uh, fall due on 31st of December. So the amount is 40,000. Enter and save this voucher. Now, again, very important for some of you, when you're now trying to pass this sales entry, or when you're trying to pass this purchase entry, uh, when you after the amount column, when you enter, the bill wise detail subscreen needs to pop up. Now, if it is not popping out, then what is going to happen? You have enabled your bill wise detail, but still this bill wise detail subscreen is not popping out. Have you done something wrong? Don't worry, you have not done anything wrong. It all depends on the configuration, right? So by default, what Tally will do is that internally, since I gave you this logic, all your sales invoice, Tally will take your sales voucher number as the primary reference number. In all your purchase invoice, if you enter the supplier invoice number in the supplier invoice number field, if you enter the supplier invoice number, Tally by default will take the supplier invoice number as the reference. If you have not entered anything, or if the supplier invoice number field is blank, then Tally will go and pick up your purchase voucher number. Okay, so that is how it is going to do it. And then, I mean, like, again, later stage, I'm going to tell you how you can set up a default credit period for different customer. So if you have set up a default credit period for your customer, okay, Tally will automatically pick up. So Tally will know that it has to pick up sales voucher number, supplier invoice number in the purchase. And since you have already defined the credit period for each of your customer, for some customer you might have only 15 days credit period, for some of them you will have 30 days, and likewise. So internally, Tally will allocate this, even though you have enabled billwise detail. If the billwise subscreen is not opening here, then internally Tally will allocate. How Tally allocates? Remember your secret number two. So in secret number two, if you see, there is an option here which says uh, this option, right? So if you see this option, use default billwise detail for bill allocation. Very important. Okay. Now, in my case, this is set to no. I mean, like in some of you, it might be yes, some of you, it might be no, but then, normally this is going to be yes. By default, it is going to be yes. Okay. So, in case if this is yes, okay, so I'm saying, let's say if this is yes, and let us say now you have entered, enter, enter, enter. See now what happened, uh, the in the amount column, if I enter, it is jumping to my narration. So what Tally will do is internally it will now take your voucher number, and then it will do the bill allocation in the background. Now, if you don't want that automatic bill allocation in the background, you want to do this allocation, then you make sure, in F12 configuration that use default bill allocation is no. Make it as no. Press Control A. Okay, and now when you come to your amount column, and when you press enter, it is now going to open up your bill wise detail. This is very important for you to understand. Okay, so enter, 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 accept, accept. Okay, so now today is 1st of December. I said 30 days credit I'm giving to this new customer. So where will I go and see my outstanding? First, I will quickly show you the menu route for you to see the outstanding. So where will you go and see the outstanding? So from the gateway of Tally, you come to display more reports, enter, and then you come to your statement of accounts. You come to your statement of accounts, okay, and then you press enter. And now, because you have enabled bill wise detail, you will see a menu called outstanding menu. So you click on outstanding menu. So we will discuss about all this when we go into the reporting part. Now currently I just want to see that invoice, how this outstanding is going to come. So I will click on my ledger. So I'm going to select my customer who's new customer, enter. And if you see here, this is what is your ledger outstanding of this customer. So any number of invoices that you have raised for this customer. So the ledger name is new customer. What is the date of your invoice? 1st December. This is the only invoice that you have raised for this customer. What is the reference number, which is your sales voucher number, which is 16. This is the primary reference for this particular invoice. Okay. And it says opening amount in the sense basically your total amount of your invoice. Pending amount is also entirely, the entire bill amount is pending. So we will also discuss why you need this opening amount and pending amount. We will discuss in that particular use case when we come across it. Now it is going to tell you when it is due on, right? So it says that, okay, so you said 30 days credit. So it says you are expected to collect this money on or before 31st of December. So this is how you will get your outstanding statement of all your new references that you have created for your every sales invoice, and similarly for your purchase invoice also. Okay. Now quickly let me just show you in Tally Prime. So again, it is very simple. So you come to your voucher entry. Okay, so it comes to payment, then you will press F8, right? So I'm going to say again, 1st of December is where I'm going to make this invoice. So in this case, I have my sales reference number as 4. Okay, party, new customer. So new, it is not there. Now you know how to create. But one thing, important thing that you have to remember, as far as your Tally Prime is concerned, if the ledger is not there, you will see on top there is one button called Create. So you take your cursor there, enter. On the fly, you can create any new ledger master. But in case of Tally ERP, you have to remember that if the ledger that you want in this particular voucher, if the ledger is not already created, you're going to press Alt C. Alt C is to create a new ledger. So I'm going to say new customer, enter. This is going to be under sundry debtors. Okay. So maintain bill by bill. It is saying no. Make sure that it is yes. Okay. Control A. Now my sales ledger is sales space bar. And let us say I'm going to sell again HP laptop i3. There are three numbers here, right? So now, okay, so the other option, so this option, I'll tell you how you can disable this. You come to F11. See, because we don't know what is the tracking number and all those things, right? So you come to F11 and then go to inventory feature, F2 inventory feature, and we will discuss this, right? So there is this tracking number, make it as no, press Control A. Now it is not going to ask you for any tracking number because we have not learnt about this tracking number. So I'm going to come here, HP. Okay. So now, because I have more than one location, it is asking you from which godown are you taking this material. So if I press space bar, it is going to tell me that I have three numbers in the factory. So I'm going to say I want to take from the factory. I'm going to take one number, right? So again, this is 40,000. Enter. So it will automatically pick up the quantity, rate, and the amount. Come here, enter. Now we are in the amount column. Enter. It is now again going to open up the same interface that you're going to get. Bill wise detail for new customer up to 40,000 rupees. Matter of adjustment. We have understood when do you use advance, against reference, new reference, and on account. So I'm going to say new reference. And you will notice here again by default, even in Tally ERP, the same logic. Tally will pick up your voucher number. It takes 4. Again, you have an option to change if you want. Then again, you can say what is the number of credit days you are giving. Enter. Okay. 40,000. Enter. Enter your narration. Accept your screen. Now you want to see this outstanding the way we saw in Tally Prime. Very simple. You will come to display menu. So I'm going to press D for display, which is the hotkey. Then same menu what we saw in Tally Prime. Statement of account. Again, the hotkey is S for statement of account. So you have this outstanding, O for outstanding. You have the same menu what we saw in Tally Prime. I'm going to come to ledger, and then it is asking me which ledgers outstanding you want to see. I want to see my new customer, enter, and again the same screen that you are seeing in Tally Prime also. Ledger is new customer, your date of your invoice, your reference number, your opening amount, pending amount, when it is due, 31st of December. Okay. So I hope this capturing of new reference for all your invoices, new invoices that you are going to raise for your customer, and all the new purchases that you're going to make from the same vendor or from different vendors. Now you know how to select the new reference and capture the transactions. So in the upcoming session, we will see how do we now knock off this reference once you receive the money against this particular reference, or you make a payment against this particular reference. So thank you all for staying till the end.